a good idea when to pass it over. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name's Bonnie Hurwitz, and I'm an assistant professor in biosystems engineering. And I also am the chair of the Research Computing Governance Committee here on campus to really drive high-performance computing efforts. So if you have questions about our HPC or really want to get involved, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Mara Aspinall as our keynote speaker to kick us off. Mara is the president and CEO of Health Catalysts. She is on the AZ Bio Board of Directors, and she is also a co-founder and director for Bluestone Venture Partners to really drive new innovation in the world of healthcare and diagnostics and healthcare informatics. And today she's gonna give us her vision about really empowering women in science and looking at some numbers to start us off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor to be here. I'm just a little intimidated with so many really smart people in the same room. But I'm going to talk today, let me just get the slides teed up. Yeah. About increasing impact and influence, specifically women in science. And when I talk about that, I'm going to talk about three different aspects of this. Number one, the data. And let me just set this expectation. It's going to be very simple for you. Number two, the impact of the data. My favorite is probably the wrong word, but the question that I ask most from a business perspective is, so what? There's a lot of data out there. There's even a lot of information, but it's only useful if you know how to use it. So I'm going to talk about that, so what? And then lastly, I'm going to talk about building influence from a global point of view as I see the industry, and then share some individual experiences that I have had. And I'm going to try to put that all together in 30 minutes. So with that, I'm going to move quickly. So first, we'll talk about the data. You know this, but I have to start to lay the foundation here, because as we heard in the video, it's a little depressing. Women, 50% of the population, almost 50% of the workplace. That actually has changed. But if we look at STEM, 24%. So we know that's a challenge, but what's the so what? Let's get into a little bit more data. Relatively high share, just over 50% in the social sciences and even biological and medical sciences. This didn't surprise me. But then look to your right, engineering, it's still 13%. Data science, computer and mathematical sciences is how they put it together. That is only 26%. So we understand those words. You probably live that on a day-to-day basis. But what makes it even more challenging is that's the average across all seniorities. This is done on LinkedIn. So there's some argument that there may actually be more women on LinkedIn aggressively going out to connect than men. So this might even be overstating the case. But if you look there, you see entry level in STEM, 24%, and go to director and above, only 17%. That is depressing. When I was a little girl, I never believed, well, I always believed that by the time I was grown up, this wouldn't happen anymore. And clearly that's not true. Not that we haven't made a lot of strides in all areas, but particularly STEM, but we need to start a bigger revolution to change that. And as I say that, most of the audience is women, but it's great to see two men here. Because just like, well, first of all, you know what it feels like to be the only one of your type in a room, which the rest of us have been there lots of times. But it also says, and the end of the women's movement in the 60s and 70s was a recognition that you can't do it by only one gender talking about it. It needs to be society broadly. So let's talk about that impact. The data about the numbers of women is pretty well known, but this I have not seen before, which is, let's talk about recognition. And for those of you in the sciences, particularly in academia, it is about recognition. How do you make your name? You make your name by getting grants, by getting publications and winning awards. And that is still disproportionately men. So let's look at math. 13% of new PhDs are women in math, but only 4.5% of the awards in the field. This is not talked about. Now, why is that? You guys probably have many more explanations and understanding than I do, but this is what needs to change. It's not just women in the field, it's women at the top of the field. It's even worse in genetics, where from a clinical point of view, most geneticists, just over 50%, are women. 25% of newly minted PhDs, award winners, 6. And there's no possibility anyone convinces me it's about intellect. Maybe it's about age, but even then I have a challenge. So how does that begin to change? So this, for me, is the first so what. The second one is follow the money. Lots of people will say, yeah, I get it, but what's it gonna do for me? You may have seen a number of studies that say companies that have 2 or more women on the board are 18% more profitable. I can't tell you why. Because that's a bit of a challenge because you can't explain why. It makes a lot of people, particularly men, very uncomfortable, but they'll put a woman on the board. I'm on 2 boards where I'm the only woman. Happily, they did put me on the board because I was a woman. I mean, let's be clear, they were only interviewing women, but they wanted my expertise. So we'll get back to that from a personal experience. But this is extraordinary. This was done by McKinsey, and it said if every country around the world had gender parity, there would be $28 trillion of new gross domestic product that is created around the world. But you could argue that that's a little overly optimistic. There are some regions where that's just plain not going to happen. So what they looked at, secondly, is said if each country, sorry, this one's blurry, if each country only did as well as their peers in the region, it's $12 trillion. So this is not just about doing nice things for half the population. It's about economic growth for everyone. Lastly, let's talk about gender parity. And again, remember that so what test. So if we look at STEM fields, or talk about broadly in science, what you see here is the number of years that it will take to get to gender parity in these fields. And at the top is the number of years. This is pretty scary. And the small number of fields that are close, remember I talked about genetics is essentially 50-50. But if you look at your field, and I'm going to call that broadly what they do in this study. You don't see it here, right? Computer science. 275 years is a very, very long time to wait. So how, as a community, is that going to get accelerated? So I'm assuming, and I saw a little bit of nervous laughter and some nods, that this is not very surprising. And again, why is this important? Well, you know, let's talk about talk about my personal story and my kids in computer science, but let's talk about computer science and what you do in the data sciences. This is the biggest fundamental change we have as a society, and I'll show it as a cartoon, first starting in 2007. Yes, it is a guy. But it is, let's call it a person, holding that cell phone. What has changed in the last 12 years since cell phones became ubiquitous? And you know that's true. I mean, I'm having anxiety leaving my phone at the back of the room. Evidently, when people are asked the number one thing that they check when they leave their house in the morning, it used to be keys, and now it's your phone. So there is no question, and appreciate everybody dual processing. It is the core to who we are and how we function in the world. And what's extraordinary when you look across the world, and you probably know this, in many countries, the number of cell phone outpaces the number of landlines. And they went through a huge gap, particularly in the African continent, where landlines were essentially never put in and skipped right over to cell phones. And I think that some could criticize all sorts of things with the cell phone, but to me, I call it empowerment. Empowerment, whether it's women in challenging situations, that the number one thing that is now given in women's shelters of abuse is a cell phone. It's a way to get out. Or the elderly. My father recently passed away, but he had 3 cell phones with 3 different services and different numbers because he always knew what was coming in and which number. And he was virtually blind, but what did the cell phone allow him to do? To Uber and Lyft and check his stocks and talk to the Society for the Blind. And he could do everything because of the data that was in that phone. So that's as a society for a whole, but let's look into the sciences in particular and why this is true on a broad basis. So I'm going to talk about, and those of you who are at U of A have heard President Robbins talk about the 4th Industrial Revolution. Well, I'm going to give you a little history and then talk about that 4th Industrial Revolution. You probably may remember this from your history classes. 1st Industrial Revolution, urbanization, people going outside of the farms and coming into the cities. 2nd is factory automation. They were in the cities, but now it was about factories. Both of those had very large impacts separately, not for today, on women though, because so much of that work that was not factory automated was women working by hand. So we had another challenge with women losing their job to bigger men and bigger machines when factory automation came in. We then moved to the 3rd Industrial Revolution, which I talked about is all the digital age and the ability to communicate broadly. But where are we today? It's what I will call the connected world. And when you define the connected world, this actually came out from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. They talked about 7 different pieces. And for me, I'm going to focus on the first 4, which is all about healthcare. And the core to this, the only so what, is data. It is only useful when you look at these key pieces. None of these are available without data science. When I talk about that importance, I used to be the CEO of Ventana Medical Systems, a $1 billion division of Roche here in Tucson. There was only one rec that we had every year constantly open and never filled. It was bioinformaticists or data scientists. When you look again at LinkedIn or any of the headhunters, the number 1 field they have to hire are data scientists. We cannot get enough data scientists. And I believe, and I get so excited when I see this audience, because companies are looking for diversity. They are trying to do that, some of which legitimately, some of which just check the box. But either way, it's getting in. So this to me is the reason. It's the 4th Industrial Revolution and the need for each one of these 7 pieces to be focused on data. So what about my business? We don't have time to go into it, but we all live this of diagnostics. And you've heard the phrase of personalized medicine. Well, the core here is, I would say, 2 things. Technology becomes generic. I would say there's no technology in the world, even with the patent system, really designed by the patent system, that will stay unique. I'm sure you've all heard of genome sequencing, NGS, next generation sequencing. It's already becoming generic. Even the leaders in the field are saying, we can do it in China, we can do it elsewhere. Number 2, the world today is creating more information than any one human, no matter how smart they are, can absorb. There's no way to do it. I'm a baseball fan. Today is actually opening day for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and heading there later tonight. And somebody asked, what would a crisis be in the Major League Baseball arena. And everybody assumed it would be a player's strike or other things having to do with baseball. And the commissioner of baseball said it's just one thing: our computers go down, because they have no way to schedule games or get all the information. I mean, it's sort of a fun thing from a sports analogy, but there's no way to move forward. When people ask me about artificial intelligence, I'd love to have this debate. I see it like a fax machine or a computer. It's not should we use artificial intelligence or not. It's really augmented intelligence. Computers are not creating these out of the air. There are people doing it, and that is what's going to change our world. And it's not going to be should we use it or not, or do we need an AI division. It is core to what we do. The field that has started to change is indeed diagnostics, which is why I talk about diagnostics. The core to health is an information business with that wet lab on the side. This is what I've spent many years on a subject matter focused on, but I want to take it and in my remaining time, give you some thoughts about where we go from here, how I've had some success from a business point of view, and what the lessons that I have on a day-to-day basis. And it's what I call the 5 C's and 1 K. So maybe easy to remember. So I'm going to shift now to a very personal piece, but with the context of the importance of science, and in particular data science in our world. Number 1, confidence. Confidence in your choices. I can't tell you how many, I'll say young women, but I'll just say women, question themselves, question their choices, sometimes hourly, but day to day, week to week. It is one of the fundamental areas that I actually do see a lot of difference between the genders. Where right or wrong, and maybe it's just in the back of their heads, and where the lack of confidence come, but so many men move forward with confidence. And have some fun with it. Go to a conference that you're not invited to. Go into a room or a party you're not invited to. What is it about? It's 100% about confidence. You walk in standing tall and looking like you belong. It makes all the difference in the world. For me, on a very personal basis, I learned this from a difficult lesson. When I was a little girl, actually I get almost emotional about this, I desperately wanted to be a doctor. My whole life was about being a doctor. I went to my guidance counselor in 9th grade, and I said, I really want to be a doctor. And I grew up very poor in a very tough neighborhood in New York. And she looked at me and she said, gosh, you're smart. I'm sure you'll graduate high school, but you can't be a doctor. And she said that just like she was saying, I can't play quarterback for the San Diego Chargers on Sunday. It wasn't like maybe it wasn't it's going to take work. It is you can't. I went home. I told my parents. My mother's a teacher. My father never graduated college, was very successful as sort of a sales broker. And that was it. It was over. It was right before I had to drop classes and start classes in the fall. And I dropped all the science classes. Hence why I'm not really talking about what you know, because it was over. And I didn't have the confidence of my conviction. And one person who actually believed in me. So when I say this, I say it to say, it's very easy to know the people around you who aren't rooting for your success. It's easy to ignore them, but don't always think that just because people like you and think you're smart and want you to be successful, that they can make decisions for you. So have the confidence in and the commitment, well, I'll get to commitment in a minute, the confidence in your own choices. Secondly, have the ability to capitalize and take chances. It goes back to confidence in the sense that unless you're, the old adage, unless you're willing to fall, you're not skiing hard enough. I don't fall when I ski. I don't need to get any better at it. but because my legs break too easily. But on the things you want to get better at, you've got to be able to capitalize. And I say this, I'll tell you again, an individual story. I headed up marketing in a law firm. It was a career that was not going to help in the long run. And I left, I went to a biotech firm. A few weeks later, I hated it. I was calling the law firm and I said, I want to go back. I was going to go back to consulting. And I was just doing kind of rote work, but I did an analysis on a money-losing division that was kind of the laughing stock of the company. And the CEO says to me, do you want to be president of that division? And literally, I thought I was dreaming. I actually pinched myself. And I said yes before he finished the sentence. And I went on to become president of that, and I took a huge chance. It was losing money. Everybody had left. It was in terrible shape, angry people. But you know what? I didn't know when I was getting another opportunity to be president of anything. So I took it. I later found out I was the fourth choice. Think about that. Everyone, Henry Kissinger was the second choice. So you can be second choice. But the second person said no, the third person said no. And then they came back to me and said, well, we've got nobody, literally, we've got nobody else. She's new, fine. So that is the importance of capitalizing and taking those chances, especially early in your career. Number 3, commitment to the community. The importance of being in the community you want and taking your leadership opportunities there. For me, it was American Cancer Society. I, again, was very bold. I said, I want to volunteer. I want to be on the business side. Help me. They asked me to run the fundraising campaign with funeral homes. Find a better way to ask people while they're grieving to give money. Talk about a lousy thing to do. But as maybe many women do, I had cookies and cake, and I, brought people to my committee meeting, and we did a pretty good job, but it was hard work. But once it was done, back to taking chances and having confidence, I went to the executive director and said, you gave me this assignment, we increased it, we've got a program, now put me on the board. And he stepped back and said, excuse me, we have a women's auxiliary. I said, no offense to women's auxiliaries, that probably don't even exist now, put me on the board. And ultimately I was and became chairman, but took a lot of arrows to do it. Next, on a lighter note, celebrate often. We get so few opportunities to celebrate. So I tell you this as an individual, but also as a leader of your teams. The best of the leaders, in my experience, work people incredibly hard, but celebrate just as hard. To have the opportunity to take a moment, and sometimes you're in the midst of a grant writing and 25 things are happening, you're up till 3 o'clock in the morning, take that moment to celebrate yourself and to celebrate with your team. They will always remember that you remembered. And lastly, for my 5 C's, cash is critical. What do I mean by that? My first day at Harvard Business School, on the board about this big, it said, screw you. It actually did say that. In today's world, it would probably be 4 letters, not 5. And I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Is it graffiti? And the professor stood up and said, if you learn anything in 2 years, and he said, especially, I'm sure he said girls, but I'm going to remember he said women. He said, you need enough money in the bank to stand up, have confidence and commitment, and say screw you to people who are negative, who are not supporting you, or worst case, and it happens, who are doing inappropriate things and you need to get out. Never be in a situation where you don't have enough money after your first few years, where you are stuck somewhere that is inappropriate for any different ways. So first thing I did, day I graduated business school, set up an account, which I still have, separate from my husband, separate from parents and kids, which is your screw you money. And you decide how much money you need there. I don't need it, so don't start any rumors. But it felt great to be able to do that. And lastly, as I conclude here, Kobayashi Maru, does anybody know that? Okay, so I see some of the folks who are nodding with smiles. It's a term from Star Trek. And what it means, you can watch the Star Trek 4 movies or some of the old series. But the short version here is take things into your own hands. At the beginning of Star Trek 4, they have a simulation, and Captain Kirk is fighting these enemies, and all of a sudden you see that, I'm shortening it, he wins, and everything is against him. The ship is blowing up, there's no air, there's no lights, it's all wrong. But he somehow comes out as a victor. And as he walks across the stage and is clear it's a simulation, his bosses in the Starfleet Academy said to him, this was a simulation to understand how you deal with failure. And he looked them right in the eye and he said, I don't like to fail. I reprogrammed the computer. And sometimes you need to figure out when you need to reprogram that computer. Sometimes the computer is your own head. Sometimes it's the organization. I hope it's ultimately society. But think about that times that you don't want to fail, but everything is stacked against you. Change the rules and figure out how to win on your terms. So with that, I'm sure it'll be a great day ahead. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And if anybody wants to follow up, please feel free to get in touch with me, email or text. And because I'd love to stay connected with the group. And if there are opportunities for internships or ways that we can work together with a commercial entity, my venture firm, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Okay, now we are going to move into the concurrent talks. Now, I want to tell you, if you've not been to this building, it's a real treat. So please don't hesitate to go up to the second floor or to the fifth floor to hear the speakers up there. And if we can possibly get a helper to go and start a Zoom recording of those sessions, it would be awesome. We are going to have down here, Kathleen Kennedy is going to talk about disruption in retail. Second floor, room S215, which is about midway across the hall on the south side of the building. That's going to be Michelle Strout from Computer Science talking about high performance computing and data. And on the fifth floor in the North 595 room, Janet Roveda from ECE talking about refining hardware design through data science. So please decide which one of those rooms you'd like to go to, and you have a couple minutes to get there, and then we'll continue.
Let me try this one. Good. This room is like long for me. All right. I'm Kathleen Kennedy. I'm a associate professor practicing retailing and consumer sciences. I have a few skills, and one of them is I have selective extrasensory perception. And so I can read some minds in the room saying, retailing. It's a data science conference. What you doing here? Because we all think about retailing as this, circa 1900 beautiful shopping plaza. This is in Milan. No data science involved. And yet the entire industry is filled with data collection points and run based on information and data. Things like, this is a wonderful company from Israel that's launched a product that reduces produce waste and dairy waste, perishable product waste, by using the Internet of Produce to tag individual produce items and adjust pricing dynamically. We have people connected to product information based on RFID and QR codes. eBay, which matches up 175 million items dynamically with an individual to present to you the one item that you're most likely to buy, with a team of 200 data scientists working behind the scenes. Chatbots, annoying little beasts that tell us what we want to buy. Appliances in stores connected to the Internet of Things that are reporting back product safety, hazmat reports. What's in them? Is it time for the device to be clean? Is the fan not operating properly? Walmart, experimenting with robotics and other things that are connected to restocking robots to make their supply chain more efficient. And Amazon that's perfected distribution chains. This is one of their warehouses, which is the little orange boxes are super cool Roomba robots, right? Roll around. So retailing, ubiquitous data collection, digitization of processes and systems, Internet of Things, and automation, all residing on top of data science. In fact, it is the #1 industry in the world in artificial intelligence investment. And yet I just saw a chart, not even represented on that chart is retailing. $5.9 billion this year. Why? Because it matters and pays off. No industry in the world has a greater effect from artificial intelligence investment than retailing. This chart shows the impact of AI investment on one axis. The second axis is of all analytics, how much of the value being driven into the marketplace is coming from artificial intelligence, all by itself, up in the corners retail. It is the business. I'm going to walk you through 3 real fast case histories to show you how retail is being transformed by artificial intelligence. The first one's from China. Alibaba's store, Hema store, is their grocery store chain they're rolling out rapidly. There's over 100 of these stores. They're all slightly different. They're loaded with experiments. They're rethinking the way a store runs. It's completely mobilized, meaning everything you do in the store is connected to an app. Shelf tags, I don't know if this is going to work, are LED, connected with dynamic pricing. As market pricing changes, the pricing in the store changes. Everything has information connected to it. If you want to know what you should buy, you can go and find out what will go with your dinner, get a recipe suggestion. Products on the shelf are individually linked to producers. They also use the store as a distribution center. So this woman is picking and pulling orders. You can order and get a delivery in 30 minutes, anywhere within 3 kilometers of this store. Each of these bags seems kind of unscientific, Each has got a digital tracker on it. They get hooked up to a system. They run across the building from one side to the other and get delivered. And my favorite part, every one of these stores has multiple restaurants, but this is the best. This is a robot restaurant. If you love robots, check this out on YouTube because there's hundreds of these little Roomba robots running around delivering orders from a kitchen filled with master chefs, cooking produce and fish and seafood that people picked out themselves in the store and delivered to people to sit and eat. No waiters, no service people. Just use your mobile phone, order, right? And to pay and check out, there is no checkout. When you order, it's charged to your mobile phone. My next example is H&M. We all know H&M, the fast fashion king or queen, right? $210 billion company, operations in 72 countries, 47 countries online. They had a big problem. A mountain of unsold apparel, $4.3 billion. Think about that a minute. A mountain of $4.3 billion worth of apparel nobody wanted. No one. They had so much leftover apparel that they are burning it to make electricity in Sweden. All right? This has been the result of poor buying decisions, of putting the same assortment in 72 countries across the world, and of intense competition from a larger company, Zara. Zara sells 450 million items a year that they produce. They ship to stores twice a week. You cannot manage at this scale without automation, artificial intelligence and prediction, or you get this. This is one shopper's haul. I found this online from H&M, $49.95 for $3, right? She was bragging on her deal. If you want a deal right now, go to H&M. They got a lot of stuff to get rid of. So they needed to fix this. They have a team of 200 data scientists working now to build the systems, processes, information, and algorithms they need in order to localize the assortments for every single store. Think about it a minute. Shipping to a store twice a week, 18 different style releases a year. The complexity of this is astronomical. We take it all for granted. It's just a store, right? They're using a combination of things, but most importantly, everything is hanging on the connection between AI and RFID tagging on small batches of production done throughout their global supply chain. Last, one of my favorite companies, Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix was started in 2011. It's a $1.3 billion startup. It is a retailing company built on artificial intelligence from the day it was conceived of. By the way, women run. CEO founder is a woman. Spectacular. The model's pretty straightforward. Collect data, use data science, take that data science and augment it with human judgment, build client loyalty and relationship by having a feedback loop with customers that gives you more data and makes that relationship stronger. This company has 6,600 employees. 4,200 of them are stylists, humans. 220 are data scientists. So you fill out a profile. Who's done this? Anybody? I've done this. It's super fun. Even if you don't want to sign up, just do the profile, right? It's like doing one of those BuzzFeed quizzes. They made it fun. You go through, you pick what you like, right? You can dream a little. I made myself really sassy and wild. The computer algorithms calculate what you're most likely to want, and they calculate some other things, right? Where are you? They have 5 distribution centers. Where are you located? And where can I find the 5 best items to ship to you in one warehouse? Because one thing we know about retail, If you get a shipment in 3 individual boxes, you don't keep them. If you get 1 box with 5 things in it, you keep it. So they have to ship it from 1 warehouse. Final thing that did at Stitch Fix is they said, can we improve fashion and design by turning artificial intelligence into a design aid? So they quantified fashion, right? Individual items, how are they rated by people? What kind of feedback do they have? Who keeps them? Who returns them? Right? What's popular? What's not? They compressed that down to a formula, and they used that formula to say the silhouette of the top piece is right. The shoulder cut of the second one is right. Fabric is right. This pattern is really wonderful. So let's use that pattern and create that item, which goes to a human designer who turns it into a piece of apparel. Top to bottom, retailing is being transformed by data, by artificial intelligence. Some of the most common requirements within retailing crisscross a lot of STEM areas and a lot of things. However, I just want to throw out one more thing. The highest paid data science jobs in the world are in retailing, because these are the jobs that generate the most economic value. Not in medicine, not in diagnostics, not in healthcare, but retailing. So with that, I think I have like 1 minute for questions. Any questions? Alibaba is right now probably the world leader in use of artificial intelligence. Beyond that, if it's an Amazon Go store, it's nothing. Shanghai, the center. For anybody who's interested in retail, Shanghai's the center. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we will hear from Helen Zhang. Mike, do you like the clip-on or the?
The very first slide one more time. I'm doing it's like an extra credit kind of thing.
There you go.
And
This one?
yeah,
There you go.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
It'll just help me answer this question.
No
I have to
problem.
answer.
It's all the way down here. Flip it. There we go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So we are going to. Is it? I don't use Windows very much. Windows.
This one. Yeah.
Perfect.
So just hold it.
You can, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Let's wait just a couple minutes.
Oh,
Mhm. Let me check the time. We might need to give people just a couple minutes to come in.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, just let's wait like 2 minutes. I think there's still food and coffee in the back if anybody needs a refill. Just waiting a couple minutes in case anybody's coming back down from the upper rooms. Yes, we do have people who want to come in. That's good. And after this, we're going to go out in the courtyard and get a group photo. We have a young lady taking photographs today, so she can tell us, make us look beautiful and tell us where to be. Okay, I think it's 2 minutes after, so let's go ahead and start. Next talk. This is Helen Zhang from the Department of Mathematics, and she's going to tell you about tripods.
Good. Hello? Better? Okay, good. So good morning, everyone. And before I start my talk, I'd like to say a few words about this women in data science community. I think it's really exciting. And this is the first time for our WiDSTucson region to organize this conference. And we plan to do it every year if we can, with your support, and hopefully, and we will see you next year. Okay. And so today I'm here, to present actually some information about the tripod. But before I talk about the tripod, okay, I'll first mention why we care the theoretical foundation of data science. So here I'm wearing two hats. I'm the faculty in Department of Statistics and Department of Mathematics and Statistics GIDP. And also I'm the PI for the very recent, and as I've founded an institute called the Tripod. Okay, I will tell you what is tripod. And so we're talking about the data science, okay? Everyone knows data science is really clearly the way to the future in our life. It's an emerging field, and it has impacts into our life, okay, everywhere. Okay? We see data science everywhere, and the data science has a lot of branches and subfields for study, for academic research, for industrial applications, and so on. And also, the job market is really hot, okay? And it's one of the hottest jobs in the market. And if you ask, our new faculty coming to the statistics PhD or master degree, what is your plan for the future? And more than half of them say, I want to become a data scientist. Okay, that's what the survey we did recently. So it's so hot. And so let's look at where we are. So we have heard so many successful stories about the data science and so many exciting applications. And right now we have a very powerful algorithms like in machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence. You may have heard of random forest, deep neural networks, and so on. Okay, and many of them offer very impressive performance in many real problems. Okay, they have like AI for business, economics, and AlphaGo. Okay, that is really for like a game on also like AI for medical. Okay, so we have actually successful stories everywhere almost, and it's making huge impact in our real life. Okay, and so everything sounds so great. Okay, so what is missing? Okay, it turns out actually the missing part is really critical. It is theoretical foundation of data science. Okay, up to today, and what are theoretical foundations of data science? Okay, that is still not clear. Okay, we know all the science field, they have their foundations like mathematics or physics principles, and all the fields. Okay, they have to have a solid ground, basic principles. Okay, before you build your high building or skyscrapers and so on. But what are theoretical foundations for data science? Okay, that's actually a very urgent question we need to address. Okay. And so it turns out, we have many unknowns, okay, about these powerful, fancy algorithms and the toolboxes. For example, many of you heard of a deep neural network or deep learning, okay? And we know that it's really has amazing performance for the imaging processing, okay, for the future predictions in many real applications. But if I ask you, why does deep neural network work, okay? What are theoretical justifications for this? What is the mathematics behind the deep neural network, okay? And when does it fail, okay? Does it work for all the problems, or it only works for particular kind of problems? And why is it better than other competing algorithms? What can we learn from these deep neural networks, okay? And also, how do we further improve this deep learning? Okay, it turns out that many of these questions we don't have answers. Okay, we basically need actually to study the theory about deep learning. But why it's so hard? Because it's you can see that many layers. Okay, many hidden layers. The algorithm is so complex. Okay, it's beyond actually the existing theories and the mathematical tools. And we have to actually develop new theoretical tools to really study this. So basically, there is really critical need of theoretical foundations for data science, TFODS, okay? And it will provide us a solid ground for research, okay? It will also give us future directions for doing better algorithms. And it's also very important in education, okay? We want to train our next generation data scientists. What do we teach them, okay? Do we teach them to algorithm users, or we want to produce algorithm developers, okay? Or people with like innovative thinking, okay, and with deep insight about these algorithms. Okay? And so there is a big, actually, a driving force, okay, behind these theoretical foundations, okay? This is actually a list of some of the 10 big ideas given by National Science Foundation. And you will see that the theoretical foundation actually are needed everywhere in all of these challenge questions, and they are really just, play very fundamental roles everywhere. Okay. But what is a major challenge? Okay, why the theoretical foundation is not there? Okay, the reason is data science is interdisciplinary field. Okay, it's not a field in one single community. Okay, and we need actually joint effort from multiple parties for a particular algorithm. Okay, we need mathematicians to understand the mathematical principles. We need statisticians to study the symptotic theories and so on, and the theoretical computer scientists to study the computational complexity of this algorithm. So one puzzle has to actually be solved by using multiple effort, using from different angles. Okay. And but why is it so hard? Okay, to do these joint collaborations, because that's not what we used to do, okay? And so we have a lot of cultural barriers among these communities, okay? Mathematicians, statisticians, theoretical computer scientists. We solve problems using different tools, we publish in different journals, and we use different languages, okay? Actually, when we had tripod, our first meeting, it took us an hour just to understand what language different experts use to actually to explain the same type of questions. So there are a lot of challenges, okay, to form these collaborations. Okay, so this is a survey we did actually before the existence of tripod. As you can see, there are many. It's a very small survey. So, but the pattern is we observe many collaborations between CS, math, statistics, to all the other domain scientist field. Domain scientist field like science, engineering, industry, and others. You see a lot of actually activity collaborations, okay, between these three to others. But how about the collaborations among the three communities? It's really rare, okay? Actually, in UA, actually, before this tripod, you know, we see there are actually really zero actually collaborations among statisticians and computer scientists or mathematicians, okay? It's not there, but now we actually have this need actually to form this three-party team to study these theoretical foundations. Okay. And that is where tripod came into the picture. In 2017, National Science Foundation founded 12 tripod institutes in the whole country. Okay, so this is a map of this where these 12 tripod institutes are. And you can see, actually, we are one of them. Okay, that's what really, really, we are really lucky, to receive a huge amount of funding from National Science Foundation to build up this team to work on the theoretical foundations of data science. Okay. So this is where I'm going to skip, and I'm going to switch my presentation to talk about a little bit about tripod. The reason I want to do this is actually I want to encourage all of you to join tripod activities, okay, and join our research team, or just you know, explore collaboration opportunities with the tripod. Okay, so what is a tripod? Okay, and this actually is official definition of this tripod is transdisciplinary research in principles of data science. So transdisciplinary, particularly here, it means three actually communities I just mentioned: mathematics, statistics, and computer science, okay? Because they are really just the core theoretical developers for these foundations, okay? So our UA tripod, okay, our vision, okay, we want to build an integrated center for research, education, and outreach in data science, and with a focus on data science foundation. And so basically, we want to actually provide this very effective framework for different people to work out, to work on the same problems all together, okay? So our goal actually is at the university level, we actually want to actually provide cutting edge support on data analytics for all the UA scientists and the researchers, and also all the researchers beyond the UA, like in Tucson region, okay? And nationally, want to make the university as a leading actually position for this data science theory, okay? 1 minute, oh, really? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so this is our tripod team. I can skip this, I guess, okay? And so we have a lot of activities like seminars, research working groups, and so on. And so we have 8 research working groups, okay? And including networks, graphs, visualization, imaging sciences, natural language process, optimization, statistical machine learning, Bayesian methods, and spatial tempo analysis, okay? So here I just give you 3 projects, okay? We actually just produced over last year. We are now just at the end of year 1, and we already produced 20 papers across these 3 communities. So this is project 1 about how do I visualize high-dimensional data using theoretical framework. You can see the research team is really just the collaboration among the 3 communities. And the project 2 is on multi-level graph representation. And then we also have how to do visual supervision for this natural language process. If you want to know more details about the 3 projects, you can read our paper. And this actually we submitted to NSF as highlights for the research for our UA tripod, okay? And we also organized a summer conference, okay, last year. We plan to organize annual conference each summer, okay? And we also have a lot of additional funding, like a tripod plus X. And in terms of support and education and outreach, we are supporting graduate students, undergraduate students, and postdocs, okay? And we also helped the math department to launch a new degree for undergraduates in statistics and data science. Okay, and so this is, I think, almost done. Okay, so if you want to know more, okay, you're welcome to visit us. Okay, and we have two office space in 2 different buildings, and visit our website to find more information. And finally, please actually sign up for our coming conference, okay, next month at Biosphere 2, and it's on May 20th to 24th. Okay, I think I will just stop here.
Okay, thank you so much. Photo out in the courtyard.